So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste, and a very warm welcome to all of you to the fourth parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament. We have some amazing people with us today to talk and share their knowledge experience with all the members of Parliament of the World Teen Parliament. I would request all the teen MPs to please keep their videos on during the complete session and follow the sequence of questions that you already submitted, and you can ask your questions one after the other. We are all live. Thank you so much once again for joining us for the fourth parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament. So in January 2022, something amazing happened. More than 2.5 lakh people voted. 250,000 people voted to elect 100 teenagers to become the members of parliament of the world's first parliament of teenagers, the World Teen Parliament. These 100 MPs right now are working on their ideas to improve the world, and we are supporting them with trainings, mentorship, and funding. Most importantly, the World Teen Parliament is a year-long parliament where teenagers come together from across the world to ideate, discuss, and solve local and global problems. A parliament where teens collaborate with other teens from different parts of the world to learn from each other and become global citizens. A parliament where they propose their ideas to global leaders and governments, where they interact with industry stalwarts, corporates, startups, and the society to implement their vision. A parliament where they get to learn future skills like problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, communication, leadership, democracy, and the skills that hopefully technology will never replace. A parliament where their ideas get supported. And this parliament is supported by Blub World, so no teenager has to pay anything to be a part of it. The only thing that they need to be a parliamentarian is a vision for the world and a support of lots and lots of people. Today, on this fourth parliamentary session, we're very happy to welcome an amazing guest with us who will be sharing his experience, his expertise with these teen MPs, and hopefully our members of parliament will learn a lot from him and will be able to implement their vision with much more energy, much more enthusiasm, and with a lot more energy and positivity that these teenagers bring to the table. A lot of fresh ideas, a lot of innovation. So let me introduce the guest for today. We have today with us Mr. Shombi Sharp, a national of the United States of America, and is the current United Nations Resident Coordinator for India since November 2021. Mr. Sharp has devoted more than 25 years of his career to promoting inclusive and sustainable development internationally, bringing experience he has acquired at the United Nations and externally to this new position. Within the organization, he most recently served as United Nations Resident Coordinator in Armenia after holding several leadership positions at the United Nations Development Program, where he was Resident Representative in Armenia, Deputy Resident Representative in Georgia, Deputy Country Director in Lebanon, Regional HIV/AIDS Practice Team Leader for UNDP Europe and the Commonwealth of Independent States in the Russian Federation, Program Manager for the Western Balkans in New York, and Assistant Resident Representative in the Russian Federation. Prior to joining the United Nations, Mr. Sharp began his career in development with the international nonprofit CARE International in Zimbabwe. He is a published author of works in health, economics, and was a United States Agency for International Development, USAID, policy champion, as well as a nominee for the UNDP Administrators Award. Mr. Sharp holds a postgraduate diploma in HIV/AIDS management from the National Medical University of South Africa and Stellenbosch University in South Africa, a master's degree in economics from the University of Colorado in the United States, and a bachelor's degree in business administration from the University of Kansas, United States. He's fluent in English and Russian. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time this weekend and sharing your time with these teen members of parliament. So now it's over to you for your address to the parliament, and then all our MPs are waiting to ask you so many questions so that they can learn a lot from you. Over to Mr. Shombi Sharp, and a very warm welcome, sir.
Okay, well, again, hope you can hear me and see me fine. Greetings to everybody. It's quite an impressive group I've seen participants well over 100 something and growing. So it's great. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here. Really on behalf of the United Nations in India. I know that this is an international World Teen Parliament. I do see a lot of participants from India. So, maybe some here in Delhi from where I'm connecting with you. So to all of you, I say namaskar. Mujhe aap sabko milkar bahat acha laga. It's really, really wonderful to be here. I hope I won't speak for too long, because I know you do have questions, and that's always, the most interesting part. But, as is usually the case, we, diplomats and development professionals sometimes, have trouble. We always start by saying, I'll be brief, and then we're not always so brief. So I'm not going to start by saying I'll be brief, but I will try to be. So I think basically just, starting, I wanted to share a little bit of a few thoughts on the big picture, the world today, what we all face, a little bit about me, how I've sort of gotten to where I am, what my path has been, of course, what the UN does, what the UN is doing here in India, the relationship between the UN and India, longstanding as well, and then of course open up for any questions. So I think we can look at it as a sort of a bad news, good news story. The bad news clearly is that we are inundated with negative headlines. I mean, everywhere we look, we're living in really, really difficult times. And this is this is both about today, and it's about the future, the one that you are inheriting. So, as we've all struggled to emerge from the pandemic, which has brought so much pain and suffering, of course, it did also bring some expedited advances in terms of technology, using online platforms, for example. So, we are trying to lock in those gains that we have made. The very fact that we're having, this conversation today with people connected online from all over the world, this is something that we were really not doing just a few years ago, pre-pandemic. So, but we've learned how fragile is the fabric that connects our world. The pandemic really, really was stressing that, and we see what happens when those connections break down. We have so many conflicts in the world already, Yemen and Syria, and now the war in Ukraine has reminded us all now not only of the horrific human cost unfolding, but also that we are also interconnected. So now in the countries across the world, certainly here in India as well, everybody is experiencing increasing inflation, shocks to fuel supplies, food supplies, hydrocarbons and carbohydrates, as they say. So it's this really and climate change. It's a climate crisis. So this vicious sort of circle confluence of peace, of war, of pandemic, of climate change. All of this creates a pretty depressing picture. But the good news is that we have, first of all, we have a roadmap. We know what we need to do. We have the Sustainable Development Goals. So we do have a vision, we do have guidance that remains as relevant as ever. Secondly, in particular for you, the good news is that there's never been a better time. It's never been more possible for young people actually to take leadership roles in the world, even sitting in your living room, wherever you are in the world, with technology, with social media, with all of the different democratized ways now of getting together, of sharing thoughts and information. You can now take action in a way at any age, from any place in the world, that really was very, very difficult, much more difficult in the past. And we now have the largest youth generation ever before, 1.8 billion, I believe. And actually here in India, this is the largest of those groups. So we have the largest single youth group in the world. And this is really an incredible opportunity, a demographic dividend, if we look at the next 20, 25 years for India to increasingly, not only to grow prosperity here in the country, but to increasingly strengthen the leadership position worldwide. And democracy, for all of its challenges, for all of its criticisms, democracy remains strong and alive. And your role as youth parliamentarians and the impressive election, congratulations to all of you for being elected. This is a perfect example of that. So I think perhaps just a little bit about me. I am the UN resident coordinator in India, as was mentioned. You can think of it basically as, well, in some respects, it's not the title, it's not the formal function, but it's like an ambassador of, representative of the UN system in any country where we have a development program. But really, the purpose of the resident coordinator is to help leverage the core capacities of the entire UN system in the country, sort of to make, let's say, the whole greater than the sum of the parts. So here in India alone, we're one of the largest, if not the largest presence outside of crisis and conflict in any country. We have 26 UN agencies on the ground. I'm sure you know them all, the World Health Organization, UN Development Program, UN Environment Program, 26 agencies with over 4,000 personnel across the country at state level, central level as well. So now that's a quick bit about my role here, is helping to bring all of those agencies to work together to deliver a partnership for the country that really leverages the synergies of everything that we do. Now, how did I get here? To be honest, I didn't expect to take this path. I started off in business. I did a business undergraduate, later an economics master's. My first sort of career, it wasn't long lasting, about 3 years, was in advertising and marketing. But at a certain point, I just felt I wasn't getting the personal return out of that career. I started to think, am I going to be happy selling more products? It was a lot of fun, very creative, and I'm not saying anything against advertising. I have lots of good friends in the industry, and that can be quite exciting. But I felt like I wanted something more, or something that was about giving back to communities, to the world in terms of my daily work. And so that's when I decided to look at international development. And I first started actually volunteering. I took a leap. I took a leap of faith. It was a big risk. It was scary, but I decided to quit my job straight out of undergraduate and moved to Zimbabwe, volunteer for a year with CARE International, just to test it out, just to see if that might be a direction I wanted to go in. It ended up being the best decision ever. I loved it. I did well. I was hired on at the end of the year and ended up staying there 3 more years, then went back to graduate school, did the economics, and then applied to the UN after that with my economics degree. And I've never looked back. So that was really, I'm so thankful that I took that risk. But this is something I'm always sharing with young people. You won't really know what you're capable of, really, until you challenge yourself. And so if you're ever faced with an exciting opportunity that may be scary, what I'm always saying is jump before you look. Obviously, I don't mean off of a building or something, but if it's a sort of a career opportunity or speaking opportunity or something like that, and you think it might be good for yourself, make the commitment, and then deal with the nervousness later, and you won't regret it. Now, I obviously have lots of tips about if any of you are interested in the kind of international career, of course, and I'm sure you can be, and we can get into that sort of conversation later. Now, the United Nations, just more broadly speaking, again, I assume you're probably fairly well versed on that, but really it's a club of nations, 193 member states that have come together, came together after the scourge of the Second World War, really. And, basically the core aim was to keep the peace, to avoid fundamentally a third world war. Now, of course, we know that has, there have been lots of failures. There's no doubt about it. Lots of conflicts, and it's something it's a constant effort. But we have so far managed to avoid a third world war. Of course, we look very nervously at the situation, what's happening now. This sort of things can spiral out of control quickly. But there have been successes. There have been failures, and there have been successes on that. Additionally, to develop friendly relations, working relations between the countries, and to work together for better lives, to eliminate poverty, disease, illiteracy, to protect the environment, in short, to make the world a better place, and to really help to implement the understanding of universal human rights, which is also something that was brought about by the United Nations. So as the saying goes, the UN is essentially sort of like a global democracy, like a world parliament, so to speak, a bit like your organization. And the famous saying that democracy, may be ugly, but it's the best thing that we've got. And so I think, what I would normally, if I'm speaking to young people, if it's in a physical setting in a room, I'd like to really be interactive, start, challenging you, asking you questions. What are those issues that you think, that you face in your lives, in your communities, what you think that you could do to tackle environmental protection, sustainable housing, all of these sorts of issues, peacekeeping and whatnot. But in this case, we'll save that for the Q&A. So we still, despite amazing gains in the last several decades, we still have about a billion people living in less than $1.25 a day in poverty. The Paris Declaration, the COP26, we have had really so much progress in the world coming together around the climate crisis, and yet we're still falling far short of what we need, the $100 billion a year to help keep the 1.5 alive, as we say, to try to limit the increase in global temperatures, average temperatures, to less than 2% centigrade, and preferably to not more than 1.5 degrees centigrade, although we are dangerously close. And at the moment, we're on track to go above that 1.5 with devastating effects for the world. If you look at the temperatures, here in India at the moment, we're in the middle of a record heat wave. If you look globally, really, I think it's, I may be a little bit off, but something like 19 of the last 20 years have been the hottest on record. It's really frightening when you look at the curve and you just say, wow, the way temperatures are going, the way that they have skyrocketed in the last 20 years, what will the next 20 years look like? What will things look like when you all have graduated university, you're off in your careers, these sorts of things. So we have to really embrace, there's so much fast moving advances in technology and wind and solar and biomass. And this is all very exciting, but there's no time to waste at all. I want to just a couple quick words about India and the UN. Again, I am really humbled by the opportunity, the privilege to serve here in India for many reasons. It's an incredibly diverse country with just unbelievable resources and cultural heritage and intellectual human capacities. And it also accounts quite literally for something like 40, maybe even 50% of many of the global SDG goals. When you really look at the targets, what has to be met, probably 40+% need to be met here in India. So the world will achieve the SDGs with India. The world is depending on India in that regard. Now, India, of course, has had a long-standing leadership position in the UN as a founding member, and Indian women, for example, have had lots of important roles. Just a few examples. When the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was being prepared, and initially it was talking, the language is about, all men are created equal. But it was a delegate from India, Hansa Mehta, who objected, and she said, what are you talking about, all men? What about the women? It's all human beings are created equal. And so that was actually changed. And that was really building on some of the historical traditions of gender equality in India. Also, an Indian diplomat and politician, Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit, became the very first woman president of the UN General Assembly. That was back in 1953. India is actually the largest UN peacekeeping troop contributing country since the beginning in 1950. No other country has provided more troops. It's about 250,000 soldiers have served, Indian soldiers have served in 49 different UN missions. And even today, over something like 5,500 Indian troops are serving in 9 different missions. And India also developed the very first all-women peacekeeping unit, another important milestone. Today, is India's leading in taking an increasingly important leadership role in terms of climate action. At the COP26, the Prime Minister announced the Panchamrit commitments, 500 gigawatts of renewable capacities, meeting 50% energy demand through renewables by 2050, really upping the game in terms of investing in green energy, hydrogen, and such. Also, India has developed the International Solar Alliance, the International Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. And I actually just came back. I had the opportunity, I was in Gandhinagar in Gujarat just earlier this week, there together where the head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros, together with the Prime Minister, launched a brand new WHO Global Center for Traditional Medicine. So basically bringing the power of traditional medicine together with the power of modern medicine to help build resilience in terms of healthy societies and healthy individuals, again, coming from the pandemic, where we've really been laser focused on the importance of building that resilience. So, finally, just, what about you? What can you do? Well, I mean, again, as the phrase goes, the world is your oyster. There's so much energy, and I can see in your faces here, really so bright. And again, it's never been, in a way, easier to take leadership positions, to share your thoughts and your knowledge through all of the various technological channels that we have. And I think, I just wanted to reiterate that it's not everybody has to be, and I spent some fantastic time visited the Gandhi ashram in Gandhinagar. And, not everybody has to be a Gandhi, not everybody has to be an amazing, courageous, world leader. What's actually even perhaps more important is to always be searching, be in tune with your instincts and with what you want to do, and search, either be a leader yourself or search for other, impressive friends or people in your network or people in your community that you see that are taking a leadership position. Because what's really important, in fact, you need the first mover, but then you need people to join. And oftentimes it's the second person or the third person or the fourth to join an important social movement, taking care of your community, that really tips the balance and gets things moving. I mean, I was just recently in Mumbai, and I had the opportunity to take part in a beach cleanup with Afroz Shah, who was a young lawyer, and just, one day looked out at the beach, Warsaw beach in Mumbai, and saw that, there was just solid waste and plastic and piled up, to the eye level across the beach. And he just said, what, I can't stand this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to start cleaning. And he started, by himself for a long time, for days, for weeks, for months. And eventually others saw that and they joined him. And that pretty quickly became actually the world's largest beach cleanup movement. And now that spread to environmental protection of mangrove swamps, of many, many other areas, not just in Maharashtra, but worldwide. So it's very important to be a leader, or also to be, a follower, in terms of really finding those people that you think have a really, really good idea to follow. So I think, let me stop there. I may have already gone too long, I'm not sure. So much more to talk about, but I'll stop there, and happy again to take any questions. Dhanyavad.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's have the questions from the MPs now. I would request the first MP to please pose the question.
Greetings, sir. Am I audible? Greetings, sir. I'm Aditri Narula from DPSG International, Ghaziabad, India. So first of all, it's an honor to hear to your views and just listen to your insightful thoughts. My question to you is, how does being a part of the United Nations influence or govern your own actions?
Well, okay. Now that's a very good question. And I think that links back to my decision in the first place to join the United Nations, because first of all, it was again, it came from my heart, it came from my core. That I felt that even though what I was doing was exciting, it was fun, it was I mean, I could have a great career doing that. I just felt at the end of the day, and look, and I don't want to undermine, many people, for example, may have a deep desire to give back to their communities, to do things, and maybe their path is to be successful in some other space and business or something like that, and then be a donor, be a philanthropist, or donate their time on weekends, or who knows, and that's all very, very legitimate and important, and we need that. I felt, though, that I wanted my just life to be about doing good, to feel like every morning that I wake up, that's the purpose of my day's work. Now, first of all, I don't want to, I mean, I love my job. Actually, for me, it's the best job in the world. But, certainly in the UN, in any organization, I mean, there are days when you're just pushing paper, you're just, any sort of job, has its boring moments. But that's the first thing, is that it was already my sort of in tune with my principles. And I'm so happy about that. I thought about, for example, I mean, I'm also interested in international relations and cultures and learning languages. That's a big part of it, also the lifestyle. I loved traveling to countries, but I didn't want to just be a tourist. I wanted to, learn about cultures and learn languages and that sort of thing. And that really overlays nicely. Now, so I think, though, that the fact that I am exposed to issues of inclusivity, of sustainability, of equality, all of these issues on a daily basis, it definitely impacts my thinking in everything that I do. So, but there's a constant dialogue, there's a constant dialogue. I'll be honest, I feel guilty, definitely. I mean, when I meet people like Afroz Shah, like all of the amazing young people that I've met throughout communities in India, I feel guilty that I'm not doing enough in terms of the personal responsibilities. And in fact, the Prime Minister, Modi, is launching a new initiative, has announced an initiative at COP26 called LIFE. And that's something that the UN, we are right now partnering with government to help launch. And that's about looking at, okay, yes, we have national ambitions, how to protect our planet. And corporations need to do their job, and communities and everything, but at the core, if 1.3 plus billion, I'm speaking about India, 1.3 plus billion people, maybe led by you, the youth of India, make a fundamental change in our daily behaviors. This is incredible. This is incredible. So, I'm trying to think every moment. For example, I absolutely 99% of the time, unless I'm literally just dying of dehydration, refuse plastic bottles of water. And I've instructed, all of our organizations, we will not, have a conference, a meeting, or any place where a hotel or something where they're providing plastic bottled water. I mean, it's absurd. And it's important. India is actually, if I'm not mistaken, in July, I think a new ban on a number of different single-use plastic products will come into effect. This is so important. I mean, I use Zomato, for example, food delivery. I'm sure many of you, have done, and sometimes I get a delivery from a restaurant, and it's like all paper packaging and banana leaf. This is wonderful. Another one comes and it's all this plastic, and immediately I'm giving them a bad review, and I won't order from them again. So I mean, that's just one small little example, but when you add up all of those opportunities each of us have, you have to make a change in your life, and more importantly, oftentimes young people will say, how can we, change the behaviors of our, how can you help work with our parents? This sort of a thing. Parents, of course, and I'm not sure, actually, I think maybe there are parents on the call, I'm not sure. So please take this in the spirit it's meant. Parents can be set in their old ways, and it's harder to change. But believe me, nobody has the power to change their behavior more than you. This is absolutely true. And I think the importance of engaging with the teen parliament and learning as you're doing about how to communicate, how to negotiate, how to, this first and foremost is important for you to help change your parents' behaviors, your households, and your networks and your school and your communities. Anyway, thank you.
A very good evening, sir. I'm Anushka Chandra Raj from grade 10 from Lucknow. And first of all, I would like to say it's an honor to get the opportunity to talk to you and ask a question. And my question is that what were the initial steps that you took to attract public attention towards promoting inclusive and sustainable development?
Okay. It was a little hard to hear, but if I understand, what are the initial steps taken to build awareness around sustainable development? Is that correct? Did yes, I miss anything? Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, this has been, and this is at the core of what the UN is all about. You know, and you can, I mean, sustainable. First of all, what does sustainability mean, right? So, of course, the most obvious aspect of sustainability is the environmental sustainability, the ecosystem sustainability, right? If we run out of water, you know, or clean air, something like that, that's the most obvious. We cannot survive. I was just as I mentioned, in Gujarat, visiting a famous step well, and you know, it was quite interesting because obviously the message there was, well, the step well is, you know, a beautiful, ornate example of master craftsmanship from the 11th century, and but there was, you know, and that was amazing. The cultural aspect was amazing, but there are also two very important messages there that I understood. One was that the stepwell was called the Queen's Stepwell, which I understand in the tradition is quite unusual. It was celebrating the leadership role of a woman, and so gender equality is one of the is probably the most important lever in terms of achieving sustainability, because we need the truly equal inputs of women and men, of girls and boys into our decision making to make the best decisions as societies. So that was one. Secondly, the ornate craftsmanship and everything of the stepwell. Basically, the story is that you have lots of different gods there, and it was explained to me. Replicas of the gods. It was explained to me by the museum that, you know, they were there to remind the people coming to the stepwell to treat the water resource respectfully, and to treat it, not to dirty it, not to abuse it, you know, to really maintain that water resource, because it was, you know, so critical to the community. And so I think, you know, looking back now, of course, the way that climate change has happened since the 11th century, the water level now is much lower. So there's no more water, you know, in that stepwell. So this is something that's not new, sustainability. When we look at our traditional cultural practices, especially here in India, we see many examples of you know, in history of ancient communities understanding the importance of preserving and living within the means, our environmental means. So that's one. But secondly, it's not just environmental, it's also social, right? So this is where issues like inequality are so important, because you can't have, if you have an economic model that is destroying the environment, or an economic model that is you know, just leading to you know, very large inequalities and these sorts of things, then you create, you know, civil strife and instabilities and that kind of thing as well. So there's also a very important social aspect to sustainability there too. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals, we had the Millennium Development Goals. They were a very good first start. They finished, we learned lessons from that. And we said, you know, then we developed the Sustainable Development Goals, which are much more sophisticated, more robust, to meet our more sophisticated, you know, kind of modern world. But what these SDGs do is they give us this roadmap. It's a whole menu of goals, of targets, of objectives what we need to do to achieve sustainability. Here in India, the government India has embraced the SDGs more than any other country I'm aware of. And I've been so impressed with that. And this is from the Gram Panchayat level in many communities to the state level, to the central level. For example, we in the UN, we're working with Niti Aayog, the sort of think tank of the government, have been now for several years on the SDG India Index. And so what this index does is it takes a look at the performance of each state according to the whole spread of nationalized SDG indicators. So that states and communities, and then and in some cases that's been taken down even to district levels. And so that you can look and see, oh, well, we're doing something right here in this area. And more, when I go and meet with states, with chief ministers and such, oftentimes they're saying, look, we recognize that we're doing well in some areas. We'd like to share that knowledge with other states. And in fact, Indian states are so, have so many resources and are large. I mean, quite often when I'm meeting with the chief minister of an Indian state, I'm realizing he's the head of a state that if it were a country, would be not even a small, but a large UN member state. But they also recognize that they need to learn. They see that other states are doing better in certain areas, certain indicators, kind of under 5 mortality rates or stunting or undernutrition and such. So this gives a really great basis for conversation about how to do better on sustainability across all of the SDG goals.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I am Devansh Agarwal, a student of class 10, Delhi Public School, Chandigarh. Sir, I'm firstly truly honored to ask a question from you. So, sir, my question is that as we all know that you have visited various places across the globe and worked there, like in Africa, Europe, or Central Asia. So what is it that makes your work in India as the UN resident coordinator more special than any other country?
Well, Devansh, that's a very undiplomatic question. No, very good question. I mean, of course, one thing, I mean, what I will say, what I've absolutely loved about my career and why I've not for one moment kind of regretted my decision to go in this direction is that I have really, really enjoyed, I've been lucky, I guess. I've enjoyed every single posting I've had. So I've had fabulous experiences and memories from Zimbabwe, from Moscow, from New York, maybe less New York because that was headquarters work, which is not as exciting. But Georgia, Armenia, Lebanon, and now India. But so I've really learned and grown tremendously. As my family has. My family has been, has moved with me everywhere. My 2 children, my wife and my 2 children, my 2 kids. I have a son who's at university now just finishing up this year, final year. And I have a daughter also who's at university in her 2nd year. So they've also benefited tremendously, learning languages, being exposed to cultures, and just seeing how I'm always so struck at how much more in common we have than the differences. So, I'm a firm believer in celebrating diversity. I mean, the cultural diversity is incredible. Language diversity and everything is incredible. And at the same time, I'm always struck by how much more similar we are. There's such a human core, common humor. I mean, I find that just jokes work. We have this concept of, oh, that joke won't work there or here or, this kind of, no, I mean, we are so alike, much more alike as people across nations than we are different, recognizing, of course, the beauty of diversity. So, but I will say that, and I'm not just saying this because I'm sitting in Delhi, I'm sitting in India. I will say that I am more excited about my my job here now in India than ever before, than anywhere else. And I think that is because for a number of reasons. One, quite simply, the work here is the most important anywhere. Going back to what I said before, India really is truly critical to global achievement of the SDGs, of moving forward. I mean, this cannot be kind of underestimated, right? So what you achieve in India really is going to drive the needle for the world. So that's one, the scale of the impact. Secondly, I've been here 5 months now, so I'm still pretty new. I guess I have about one more month before I have to stop saying I'm brand new. Generally, you have a sort of a 6-month, grace period. But I'm still, and I've been able to travel. I've been traveling as much as I can. We have, a bit of Omicron COVID wave and things, but I've been to Madhya Pradesh, to Rajasthan, to Maharashtra, to Kerala, to Gujarat, to, and I'll very shortly be going to Orissa, to Chandigarh, to Andhra Pradesh. So, eventually, of course, I hope I can get to every state in India. I mean, it's a challenge because there are so many amazing states, but I'm just blown away. I'm just amazed at the unbelievable diversity of this country. It's something that, as a foreigner, one can read about it, but it's really not until you experience and travel that you really kind of start to understand the amazing breadth of diversity in this country in every single way, in the history, in the language, in the food, in the culture, and the artistry and everything, and industry and economy and that sort of a thing. So I will, Devansh, I will agree with you. On the one hand, I'll say I've loved every single posting I've had, but I will agree with you that I'm the most excited to be here in India.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Good evening, sir. I'm Anushka Pawar, a class 10 student from MIT Vishwashanti Gurukul School, Pandharpur, Maharashtra, an MP of World Teen Parliament. And I really feel very honored to ask you a question, sir. So my question is, how should teen MPs and influencers contribute to the sustainable development of the world?
Great. No, good. Very, very good question, Anushka. And actually, my daughter's name is Annika, but we were living in kind of, in Russia for a while, and in that part of the world, the nickname for Annika is well, for Anna is Anushka. So basically, my daughter's name is Anushka. Spelled maybe slightly differently, but more or less the same. And so I was really happy first arriving here and meeting people named Anushka. I thought, oh wow, okay. So that's I have a common a family connection. So thank you for that. I think that gosh, there are so many ways. I mean, first of all, what you're doing already is the first very important step. You're showing your interest, your potential. You're getting engaged. You're building your resume. You're starting to make those connections and learning those skills. As we were as Daksh was talking about in the beginning, learning about communication and negotiation, critical thinking. So understanding the issues, first of all, that's the most important. And so I would recommend, first of all, studying as much as you can the issues that you feel are important, so that you have the language to convince people. I mean, this is one thing I'm often asked, sort of, how did I choose my educational path, this kind of thing. And I did a master's in economics. What I really loved about that is that learning the discipline of economics is it's a great way. It's basically a great, very structured way for critical thinking, to break down emotions into very logical paths, and to understand that every issue, no issue is black and white, And every policy decision, so if you're advocating for a policy choice with government, every policy decision has, pros and cons or unexpected, let's say, consequences. And actually taking no decision is actually making a decision too. So oftentimes, a policy choice is sort of put like, should we do this or should we just leave it as status quo? Well, status quo is itself a decision with consequences. So, but this is not to say at all that economics is definitely not the only path to take. But the more that you can study the issues and gosh, another advantage you have, all of you have now that I never had. There are so many learning materials, on the internet, of course, obviously on YouTube, and you go, any topic you want to learn more about, you just Google it, and you have really great user-friendly, learning-friendly tools online. And, within the course of a couple of hours, you can be, pretty informed about any sort of a topic. So leverage those resources that you have to learn the material first. Secondly, leverage the fact that you're now part of this organization, and that this gives you, it gives you a bit more of a let's say a calling card, to knock on doors, people you think are decision makers. So you're not coming just as the person that you are, which is itself absolutely fully legitimate. And these days, policymakers, older people like me, respect more and more the voice of young people. That's another real advantage, right? But also having that calling card of being a member of the World Teen Parliament, this can help you open doors. So don't be shy at all about knocking on doors, having conversations, because decision makers, people in authority, wherever it is, in your school, in your community, in the panchayat, and any level, they're interested in having conversations with young people, and in fact, more and more, we've so much recognized it's important to converse with young people that we have, built-in requirements, let's say. So when we're developing, we're actually right now, the UN system, we're just in the process of developing our next 5-year cooperation framework, our partnership offer to India. And we've been very, very careful to ensure the voice of young people in terms of helping us understand what are the challenges and what are the solutions. We have Generation Unlimited, which is the global sort of, let's say, initiative to ensure that we're listening to young people sufficiently more and more. Because it's not, we used to say we should listen to young people about the future, because young people will be inheriting the future. And that's still very much true. But what we've realized now is it's not about the future, or not just the future. It's about now. It's about this very moment, that the voices, the wisdom, the knowledge of young people is really important even now, today. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. I am Sejal Garg from Delhi Public School, which is in Chandigarh. I'm so grateful to have you here among us. So my question is quite small one, and it is: are leaders born or are leaders made?
Okay, that's a very good question, and I think that I would say the answer is clearly both. So there are certainly some people who are just born with the gift, no doubt about it, right? Vision, charisma, strength, courage, you name it. So obviously there are naturally born leaders. However, there are so many leaders who I don't think anybody, could say we're born that way. And rather, became leaders, whether because they worked on it, they had a drive, a passion, or because they were put into a situation that maybe they would never have expected to be in, right? So again, it goes a little bit back to my earlier statement, is that, I mean, my advice to you young people, when you're making decisions about your future, what do you want to study? What might you want to be when you quote grow up? Is my number one advice, and actually this was always what my mother told me. My father was much more sort of narrow-minded. Let's say you just should go into business, you should just make money, and you should just do this sort of thing. My mother was always saying, you should search for your passion, and whatever is your passion, your love, and I mean serious passion. She meant that, not just like messing around, but just if you have whatever it is, if it's in the arts, if it's creative arts, passion, music, history, you name it, or business, whatever it is, search for that passion and keep your mind open for quite a while, because, and I really do believe this, you will be the most successful person, and I mean most successful in every way, if you choose a career, if you choose a path that you're passionate about. I feel that I've benefited from, again, as I mentioned, I made at that time, it was quite scary change to leave my first job, my first sort of career a few years after undergraduate in marketing and advertising. And, a lot of people, my father, for example, thought I was kind of making some bad decisions. But in the end, it really, really paid off. Why? Because I've been much more successful than I would have been had I stayed, in doing something that I didn't truly love. So, it's just to say that you will be, the more you are in tune with what you're doing, the happier you will be, and the more productive you will be, and the more successful you will be, whatever it is. So I think that's really, that's at the core right there, and everything else follows from that ultimate choice that you have. And of course, we all make decisions. You will have to make your decisions, choosing your path within parameters. So I'm not, I'm not saying you should just all, it's just free choice everywhere and carefree. Of course, you'll have influences from your family, from your parents, of course. And I'm not at all suggesting you don't listen to your parents. Of course, you should listen to your parents, and you should listen to your family and your networks and things like that. But also keep your heart open and really search for that path that resonates the most with you, because at the end of the day, you will be the most successful. And the single greatest message, you probably hear this from older people all of the time, and that is you can't understand now at your point in life. It's just a kind of a mathematical relationship. You can't understand how much time you have ahead of you to achieve incredible things, right? So on the one hand, yes, life is short. We can't take any moment for granted. But on the other hand, you have so much ahead of you. You have so many opportunities to make changes in your lives. You can try one sort of career, one direction, study one area, and then decide, you know what, maybe try something else, right? I think today, I forget what the number is, but today, most people in their life are changing careers, for example, 3 times or something like that. Now you're still, you're at the point where you're deciding what you want to study. The career is still, a bit further ahead. So, really keep your mind open, and don't put too much pressure on yourself now to feel like, if you somehow feel like you're not achieving everything you want to achieve, you're so young, you have so much time to do that. Don't put pressure on yourself now. Keep moving forward. It's not about, just wasting time or something, but don't worry, don't stress because I've seen, like my own example, I took a completely different direction at a certain moment in time. I have so many friends and colleagues that did the same. And there will be times, and you're going to be very stressed about, am I doing the right thing? Am I don't worry about that. As long as you are following a path that you are passionate about, and you're working, we all need to work hard. Things will work out. They just do. They really, really work out. And I guess that's my one message. It's hard for you to see that now. I know. I remember absolutely, being your age and having exactly, the same sorts of thoughts about the path. So, yeah. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Good evening, sir. I'm Bhavneet Talwar from Delhi Public School, Bangalore East, and I'm an MP from the World Teen Parliament. It's truly an honor to be able to interact with you. My question is, as a member of the United Nations, what are a few things you have learned from the experience? And as members of the World Teen Parliament, what tips would you like us to keep us in mind?
Okay, so I think I have what I've experienced. I mean, really, first of all, I highly recommend the international path. I mean, I've really enjoyed that tremendously. So I think any opportunities that you have, to learn lessons, to learn languages, to travel, to get out, to expand, your horizons and engage with other cultures. And actually, it doesn't have to be going to other countries, right? I mean, especially a country like India with such great diversity, you have so many opportunities within your own communities to reach out and to learn about other, communities, faiths, different types of communities within your own environment. But that's one thing I would say that's probably the most important, is that I've really I've grown as a person from exposure to so many different perspectives and ways of thinking. And I think, again, as I've sort of already mentioned, we are all so much more alike than you could imagine. We're much more similar than we are different. But it is really important to embrace and celebrate our cultural diversity, because again, as an aggregate society, we make such better decisions when we have diversity in the mix and when we have equality of voice. There are lots of studies that have shown, in fact, that, it's quite shocking that when you take diverse populations and you look at decision making on average when you aggregate across a diverse population, the decision making is much better than when it's made by smaller groups. Even when one could sort of think, well, maybe you're choosing a smaller group that's maybe better educated, maybe has, sort of higher income, or, things like that. One could sort of make an assumption, probably they're going to make a better decision. But no, really, when you aggregate decision making across diverse populations, you find, and there are lots of studies on this, that the decision making really is much better. So that's something. And then finally, I wanted to really reiterate, I think the single most important challenge that we have, an opportunity that we have, is promoting gender equality. And there's no country in the world really, that has true gender equality. So it's a process everywhere. And I think, and I'm just looking at the, all of your faces on the screen, and I can see that you've got really, great mix here in terms of the World Teen Parliament. That's really important. Our adult parliaments, need to be similarly reflective of the fact that women are half of the world's population, half of the the skills, of the insight, of the wisdom, and these sorts of things. It's vitally important that our parliaments also get to gender equality, and it's unfortunately I don't think there's a single one in the world. So you can really give this important message through your work as well, that we need to keep striving in that direction. I was in my trip just in Gujarat and in Gandhinagar. I had the opportunity to meet with the board of Seva, banking foundation organization, and it's just incredible. I mean, 2 million women are members of the various organizations that they have set up there, leading in terms of banking operations, in terms of insurance operations, and really bringing such enhanced prosperity to households and to communities across the country. And it's a model for the international community as well too. So I guess I would just say, that's one another thing that I've learned. Gender equality, we really need to take it so seriously and keep working to ensure that women and men, girls and boys have equal opportunity, because we all benefit. It's win-win. The boys and the men benefit absolutely, as well from achieving gender equality. So that's a really important message that I've gained from all of my posts across the world, and really take very, very deeply seriously.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. I am Aisha Amin Nazir of Sethama Jaipuria School, Bansal Campus, Lucknow. It's truly an honor to ask you a question. My question to you is that which skills do you want us to hone to become better parliamentarians?
Okay, well, that's a very good question, and to be honest with you, I mean, you already now have more experience as parliamentarians than I do, so I'm not sure if I can really, I can't speak from a position of authority. Let's say like that. However, I think that I mean, the traditional model of a parliamentarian in a democracy, is really it's the central core of the democracy. Because it's really, obviously democracy, I mean, what we focus on are the elections. So that's really important. That's a hallmark. You have to have open, transparent, credible elections for democracy, of course. But, democracy and governance is also actually even more what takes place between the elections. So, in between these elections at 4 or 5 years, whatever apart, it's that daily, life of democracy that's so important. And this is where parliamentarians play such a key role, because the parliamentarians are the interface between the people, the citizens, and the government. Parliamentarians, you have your constituencies. So, that's the single most important aspect of a parliamentarian, I think, is to be in tune with your constituency, to be in tune with your communities, where you're coming from, to understand their views, their priorities, their challenges, and also their ideas, their insights, and how to match that then with, as I mentioned before, doing a lot of research and understanding, to be sure that you are on top of the latest in terms of climate change, of poverty reduction, of all of these issues of sustainability, so that you can help be that glue between the two. So number one, most important for a parliamentarian is the ability to listen to your constituencies. Number two is the ability to, through your expertise in the subject matter, and it's challenging because, as a parliamentarian, you have to be able to cover, a wide range of issues, right? You have to sort of be a bit of an expert on many, many different things, and it's not easy. But bring that expertise that you gain through your research and your interactions with your colleagues, apply that to the listening and the knowledge that's coming, from your constituencies, and you take that to the policymakers. or you put forth initiatives, policy initiatives that really is a combination of those two. So it's not to get don't get stuck in your bubble, don't get stuck in just the research that you're sort of gaining. Be sure that you are listening and communicating with your constituencies, and bring those two streams together, take it to the policymakers, and learning the skills of being persuasive, of analytical thinking. This will make your argumentation convincing, and that's really, I'd say, that's kind of the constellation of skills coming together that make a great parliamentarian.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I see. I see a question, or rather sent to me. I don't. Should Daksh, should I answer that one?
I would ask the team that. Okay, who's the next parliamentarian?
Yeah, sir, that's me.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. Thank you so much for enlightening us with such a valuable information. My name is Sonal Gupta, and I'm a student currently studying in grade 12 at Delhi Public School, Sector 45, Gurgaon. As the member of the World Teen Parliament, sir, I would like to ask you, like the issues like climate change, development of nukes, cyber terrorism are surfacing the globe today. So how do you think we as young change makers can contribute effectively to bring world peace and influence people together to achieve the sustainable development goals? Or on that note, sir, like since the session has been started, I have been noticing your background, and I've been really excited to see the United Nations and the Indian flag together. So I would like to ask you one more thing. Like as the member of the United Nations conference at my school, whenever I'm at a conference, I feel a sense of accomplishment that okay, today as a teenager, I have a stance on the current world issues. So, sir, are there any opportunities for us teenagers to be actually involved in the real United Nations and work at the ground level to actually put a part as a global citizen?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sona, very good questions. I think that first of all, again, how to influence. I mean, I think you're exactly on the right path. You're engaged. Model UN. This is a fantastic. That's also a really good platform and process. How to learn about the issues. How to actually. I'm always impressed. I mean, I've spoken various times to Model UN kind of conferences, and again, to be honest, I mean, I've never been a part of the political UN. So we also kind of always keep in mind. There are sort of different worlds. You have the political UN, the Security Council, the General Assembly, that, and you have the peacekeeping UN, and then you've got the sort of development and human rights side of the house, part of the picture. And I've always been in the development and human rights part of the picture. So I'm fascinated when I speak to Model UN, groups. I mean, I do a little bit of sort of studying myself about what they're doing, what you're doing, and it's very interesting because I mean you're going through a whole negotiation process that's actually even much more challenging, let's say, than usually the negotiation process that I'm going through, because the negotiation process I'm going through is working principally with one country. It's a bilateral relationship. So I'm trying to connect the dots between the international best practice and the UN obligations and commitments to development and human rights and such with national priorities. And so that's the conversation with governments, with communities, with business sector, civil society. What you're doing in that political UN negotiation process is you've got, all of these different member states representatives, trying to come together, trying to agree a text, a position on a challenging issue. And I think, it's not easy. And yet I'm always really, really amazed and impressed at, this is such an important value add of the United Nations, because we have been able to, if you look, for example, if you look at the SDGs, this is an incredible roadmap of really centered fundamentally, on the rights of people. You look at the, the human rights special measures and all of the, Declaration of Human Rights and all of the different treaties and such. It's quite incredible, actually, that especially, you're talking, diplomats and bureaucrats and coming together. It's incredible that we have been able, as a world community, through the UN, vessel, have been able to come to agreement on so many really challenging and potentially, politically sensitive issues. So the model UN is a great way to kind of learn how does that work and to continue that momentum forward. And I think you should be very proud, to see the Indian and the UN flag together. Again, India has been since the beginning, a real leader in many respects. I was speaking about human rights. UN India has been a strong proponent of what we call the Universal Periodic Review process under the Human Rights Commission, which is basically a peer review process, which is, again, something really quite exceptional. It's the governments of the world, the member states, say, okay, look, we are open to hearing comments, feedback. I mean, let's call it what it is, at times criticism, put in diplomatic terms, about human rights issues and performances from the peers, from other countries, so they open themselves up to this process. It's really, really important. And India has always been a strong proponent of not, some countries at different times have tried to water down that process, maybe take out the peer review part of it. Why do we need to listen to other countries' kind of views on our, internal matters? And India has always been a proponent. No, we need to keep that UPR process, robust and legitimate. So, India has made so many important contributions, and I think it's really great. And if we have, people on the call from other countries, it's really important to study your country's, again, you can Google, you can quite easily learn about the role that your country has played in the UN system. And that's really a fascinating and empowering sort of departure point to become engaged and to become influential. So, you asked, how can you be influential? Well, again, I think you're doing exactly what you need to do, and maintain, engage with your community, with your constituency, whether it's, it's just your parents, your family, it's your school, it's your teacher, it's your community, whether you're in a big city, your block, or you're in a village, other people in your village. Connect that with, because now you can open doors to policymakers that you couldn't before. Now, I should also say, the UN, of course, we're always reaching out to young people. We have what we call Yuva, Generation Unlimited, which is the Generation Unlimited kind of chapter here within India, and you can look it up online. It's yuwaah.org. If you're not already familiar with that, that's a great kind of channel to engage with us, with the UN. Where there are many different programs that we're reaching out there. Of course, internships, that's another important way. Now, most of our UN agencies, I think it's unfortunate, but they reserve most of the internships for actually university students, even graduate universities, or once you've graduated, from undergraduate. But some agencies have internships at actually pretty much for the most part, you have to do that once you're in university, but you can find different ways to volunteer. And I'll tell you what, my path to working with the UN was through civil society, NGO sector, right? So it's about building relevant experience. You're already doing that now as part of the teen parliament, but it's about volunteering in your communities. It's about working with civil society organizations, about organizations in your community who are looking after vulnerable populations in any way, looking after environmental protection, you name it. If you can get volunteering experience or any experience with those kinds of organizations, you're building your resume, as we say, but you're gaining a lot of knowledge, and that then will make your application look much more interesting later when you apply, say, to the UN for an internship or for a volunteering position.
Thank you so much, sir. That really answered my question.
Good evening, sir. I'm Pragya Jain from Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. I'm very fortunate to be able to ask you a question. So we are aware that the UN has been unable to resolve the Russia and the Ukraine conflict. So, sir, how do you think we as teen parliamentarians can restore people's faith in the UN and peace processes?
Oops, lost my video there. Thank you. Okay, well, Pragya, obviously that's a very good, important, and challenging question, no doubt about it. There are lots of people. I mean, the UN has been challenged, obviously, for a long time in many different respects, and most of all around conflict. So as I was mentioning again, the UN was formed. A large part of it was out of the ashes of the Second World War to try to help save humanity from that kind of destruction. It's been said that the UN it's not about taking the world to heaven, but trying to keep it from hell, the worst. That's one way of looking at it. Now, obviously, in certain respects we've succeeded, but in many respects, we've not. And it's difficult because often the successes are the counterfactual. So you don't really know. It's hard to know when you've been successful because it's more difficult to see peace, right, than conflict. So peacekeeping efforts in many places have actually been successful, but we don't celebrate that as much now. But at the same time, we have to be honest about the failures. We can't, improve if we don't learn from our failures. Ukraine, yes, this is now again. We have to recognize that there are a number of conflicts, obviously, in the world, with devastating consequences for people. Again, I've mentioned Syria and Yemen, and there are others. So it's not that the Ukraine conflict, is the only one, or that we should only care about that one. Absolutely not. But the Ukraine conflict, for various reasons, is probably challenging, as you noted, the sort of the very existence of the UN, that political UN I was talking about, for different reasons. One, it's the role of Security Council permanent members in there. It's taking place in Europe, which is kind of having a more direct impact because of the economic relations that we have, a more direct impact with many countries in terms of food. Ukraine and Russia are both major suppliers of food, of fuel to countries. So everyone is being affected in different ways. This is where the role of member states, and this is important to reiterate, that the UN is a group of member states. So the UN cannot go beyond that which the member states will empower it to do. So it goes back to the member states. The urgent need is for the member states to empower the UN to take action, to bring peace, to bring a ceasefire and to bring peace. And here India, is one of the most important member states there are. India is not part of the, the Security Council permanent members. India is a member of the Security Council, and therefore in a very influential position at the moment, not a permanent member. And there's a lot of talk about the need for reform of the Security Council structure, and I agree with that. But there is a lot that member states can do to influence, movement towards a ceasefire, towards peace. So I think here, working, especially for you, Indian youth, working through your constituencies, working through this channel as well to engage with, with the Indian parliamentarians, Lok Sabha, and with other. Now that you have that calling card, you can call on them, parliamentarian to parliamentarian, and ask them, what are we doing as a member state to help push for peace in Ukraine? It is vitally important. You're absolutely right. And what I can say is that the Secretary General is actually now shortly, is traveling to Moscow, speaking with the leadership there, traveling to Kyiv, speaking with the leadership there. So the Secretary General now is playing a very personal role, taking a leadership step. This is quite new. This is happening now, and we can hope that might give a chance to broker a ceasefire, to stop the bloodshed. That's the most important thing, and then try to build a peace agreement moving from there.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. My name is Abhishek Sharma, and I'm studying in class 10th in Gwalior Glory High School in Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. And sir, my question is that what lessons have you learned by being a resident coordinator, which you would like to share with the MPs of World Parliament, so that we can apply your advices to improve ourselves, so that we can improve the world? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, so I think, the most interesting, a very interesting part of being a resident coordinator, which is both a challenge and an opportunity, is that it's about working with so many different organizations and perspectives and trying to come to a mutual agreement about the path ahead. So again, we have 26 different UN entities and agencies in the country. Now, each agency, each entity has their own representative on the ground. So again, a UNICEF, a WHO, a UNDP, each have their own representatives. And they are reporting to their headquarters. And then I have, coordination authorities over our joint UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, which is the system-wide partnership offer to India. And it's each of those 26 country programs, different agency programs, are driving that cooperation framework. So it's how to kind of bring those two streams together. This is the challenge, because everybody has their own individual, we say KPIs, key performance indicators, their own institutional interests as well. The UN reform has been the UN has been under a large reform since 2019, bringing us together more, delivering as one. But it's a process, and still, it's trying to lead through example, lead through inclusivity, lead through let's say a motivational type of leadership rather than an authoritative type of leadership. It's all about the carrot, not the stick. It's the carrot. So I think, and that's really the most important for you, because especially as a parliamentarian, and in most cases in life, your influence is not going to be through authority. It's not going to be that you're somebody's boss and you can just tell them to do this, right? You have to learn how to get people to see the value of what you're saying through your actions, through the integrity and the honesty of your actions. And you lead through trust and empathy. And I really think that's also the most important. It's very easy to say, right? But if I were to describe my leadership, it's two words: trust and empathy. I'm always trying to understand, and this is at every level. I mean, this is you're working with a community, with facing challenges from climate change, a community facing increasing flooding or these types of disasters. Really understanding their position and their views on things. Or it's dealing with organizations that you have a collegial relationship with, other UN agencies in my case. Understanding the position, because ultimately institutions are people. There's the buildings we work in, the forms we fill out, they're not sentient beings. It's every organization is actually individual people, to state the obvious. And so you need to work with those individuals through in my view, I think empathy is the best approach to help bring them on board, to kind of row in the same direction that you feel is important. So I think that's really what I would, kind of share from a sort of a leadership perspective. There are lots of different leadership models, and you can focus on the different, there's like a kaleidoscope of different leadership models. There are like, maybe, I don't know, let's say 8 principal leadership models, or depending on the reference you're looking at. I would go for that one that is that, genuine trust and empathy-led type of leadership.
Namaste, sir.
Thank you.
Namaste, sir. I am Shwansh Kumar Raj of class 12th in Alcon International School, New Delhi. I would like to state my mother is also working in association with UN on YUVA, which endeavors for skill development in youth of India. Coming back to my question, in a very recent article of Dr. Manmohan Singh, he explained how the new economic equilibrium is shifting and the world is moving towards the concept of trade with principles. How do you think this will affect India's place in the new world order, being the world's largest democracy? And how do you see India's rising stature on the World Forum? Thank you.
Okay. Very good question. Another quite challenging question. So let me just try to respond. I think that's very correct. In that they're basically there are different kind of models, worldview models with geopolitical interactions, and at the one end of the spectrum, you have what we could call purely transactional or realpolitik kind of relationships between states, and that's sort of a valueless, or just basically doing whatever you feel benefits you the most at any given moment in time. And this really goes against the principle of multilateralism of the UN. This is more the way the world worked. We called it mercantilism, or colonialism, or that was really kind of the old way of working. So a big part of the spirit and the purpose of the United Nations is to say, look, we need to have a rules based on fairness, on equality, on decency, on dignity, these sorts of things. And our relations in every respect, whether it's again treaties around human rights, or whether around trade, that there needs to be some principles there and some values there. That's the real spirit of the United Nations. So I think it's important now. But every country, there's a balance. I mean, let's not being naive. I mean, every country ultimately wants to do the best for its people, and this is absolutely natural and correct. But it's just to understand that doing, what is best for each country's people. Well, the multilateral view, the view from the UN, is what is best for each country's, people is not necessarily, purely self-interest. it's taking in global public goods as well. Climate change is a perfect example, right? If we continue every country just doing what it thinks serves itself best, then we all suffer, and in the end, none of us will survive, right? You look at pandemic. There we see that if you don't have equity in terms of access, I mean, a big part of the reason that we're still dealing with COVID-19, is that we didn't have equal access to vaccines and these sorts of, resources across the world. So no country can feel, that it's just something where you only look out for your own needs, that you won't pay the consequences. So we have to work together, and that's really that's the whole spirit of the UN. It's a dance, finding that right combination. It's a challenge. That's what diplomacy is all about, and that's why it's not easy. But having that roadmap, having the SDGs as a global roadmap to help guide the answer to your question, I think is really, really important, and why it's so valuable that we have that.
A very good evening, sir. My name is Mishri Jaiswal, and I am a student of class 12. I am from Central Academy, Barabanki, Uttar Pradesh. So first of all, it's an honor to ask you a question, to interact with you. So my question is that, what should be our approach to solve a particular social problem?
Sorry, I didn't quite get the last bit. What approach to solve what sort of problem?
So what should be our approach to solve a particular social problem?
To solve a social problem. Well, and here I think, this is basically, this is a principle that we apply across the board, which is, any solution, the way that development has worked, has really changed. The philosophy has changed a lot in recent decades, really, right? So, it used to be you would just come in as the development agency, whether it's UN or it's a a big NGO, come to community and sort of say, look, we know you have this problem, and this is the way to solve it, and here's how you do it, and here's a technology to do it, or something like that, and do a project, complete it, and then we're done, and then leave. And then quite often you would find, if you check back a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, something like that, you would find that intervention was a total failure. And the reason, fundamentally, is that the local communities, the people who are actually used to be seen as just beneficiaries, like passive recipients, right? You're just going to come in and help somebody, and they just kind of are the recipient of what you're doing, and that's it. We found out that we failed because we didn't treat them as partners in the solution, and we didn't together co-create jointly a solution that works for them, that works in their context, that works for them, that they are going to embrace. And at the end of the day, because it's not about us, we're not the ones achieving the change, it's the communities who are achieving the change. So everything has to be, the sustainable solutions are those solutions that are, again, co-created together with communities. I'd say that really is the fundamental sort of lesson. And I would encourage all of you in your, when you're looking at social problems, when you're looking at things that you want to change, to understand, yes, you need to study the textbooks, you need to study the literature, you need to know what is the best practice, cutting edge experience from the world, because also it's not, I mean, excuse me, every context is different, but it's not without some commonalities, right? So it's important to know what are the, for addressing stunting, let's say, in children. Well, it's important to know what have the effective, successful approaches been in other countries, or in India, what's worked in other states, right? But at the same time, you have to understand you cannot just apply that, directly to any community in a different place. You need to work with the people in the community to understand and together develop the best solution, because that's what will work. And that's, when you go back 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, you see a community that's prospering rather than, a failed sort of development project.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shombi Sharp. These are all the questions that our MPs wanted to ask you. Thank you so much for your such amazing patience and so graciously taking their questions and answering them. And I think our MPs would have learned a lot from you. At the Teen Parliament, we are trying to tell them two things. The first and the foremost is that they must always have a bigger vision. The question that they answered to be a part of the Member of Parliament, that was that how will I improve the world? And the second thing that we're telling them, you only need a lot of resources to replicate and scale up. The change always starts from an individual. The World Teen Parliament is a flat parliament. There are no prime ministers, there are no ministers, but every single MP has his own agenda where he's creating his own teams with other teenagers and trying to work on their ideas. These teenagers have been influencing a lot of teenagers since the last 4 or 5 months. We have started an aspirational activity, which we are calling What Teens Want, where we are trying to assimilate the opinions of at least a million teenagers by the end of this year, and trying to know from them that what is the aspiration that is not getting met. Because teens essentially are not a recognized stakeholder anywhere in policy making. And we hope that they get this kind of recognition, at least on some forums. They might essentially not get diplomatic powers, but at least getting them recognition as stakeholders is what we are trying to do at the World Teen Parliament. And we hope we might get your support in doing this in the future as well. Thank you so much for taking out the time for us today. It was amazing listening to you. I hope all the MPs also learned a lot from you, and we hope we're able to host you again sometime at the World Teen Parliament. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Daksh. It's really, again, it's a real privilege and an honor and opportunity, to have such an opportunity to engage with such a big group of really, sharp and energetic, dynamic young people. I like to say that, even though I have gray hair, I still consider myself a little bit Vojo Dulce Young Hai. So, obviously, we're all young at some point. We're no longer young, but we can stay young at heart. And I think that this is the importance of all of you. Again, as I mentioned, you really can influence your immediate surroundings, your households, your parents, your family, your schools, your friends at school, your communities, and now you're parliamentarians. You can knock on the doors of the parliamentarians in your state, at the central level, and also the panchayats. I mean, just if you're in a village, reaching out to the panchayat. I mean, I think they're going to be really, you'll find that the adults are really excited to work with you when you're coming with purpose. You're coming with, what you want to do, and a sort of professional attitude. I think you'll find a lot of very, great reception from the decision makers around. So congratulations again to all of you on being elected into the parliament. And I think, just keep it up. You give all of us ones with gray hair, great optimism that your generation will do a better job than ours did.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.